this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Friday. Kick off the Winter Olympics in style with the opening ceremony from Italy, featuring a special performance by Mariah Carey. Celebrate the greatest athletes from around the globe as they come together to go for gold.
Lindsey Vonn, sensational!
The opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics.
Ilya Malinin. Redefining the sport.
Friday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. When I was a little boy, very little, I lived in this kind of old ramshackled house that my great-grandfather had built. He had been a stonemason. The floors were all poured concrete, smooth and cold under your feet. And my bedroom was immediately adjacent to my mama's room. Everything creaked in that house. And when I was little, I had an issue with nightmares. And there was one nightmare that was repeated. I don't know if any of y'all have these that kind of reoccur over and over in your mind. But when I was little, there was a nightmare that I would have that involved, of all things, the legs of the Wicked Witch of the East, not the West. Do you remember those legs from The Wizard of Oz? They're sticking out from beneath Dorothy's house that landed on her. The striped stockings, the red shoes. And my nightmare involved those legs hanging from the ceiling, and the room would spin and they would just dangle over me when I was little. And it still, at the age that I am now, those memories still inhabit my thoughts. Today, we're going to talk about some cases that involve something else that seems like it's made up. It seems like maybe it's cartoonish, but the reality is this. The person behind this evil may appear like an arch villain in some kind of superhero comic. But let me assure you, he's real. And his name is Wade Wilson. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. Brother Dave, I guess it was probably, I don't know, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. I sent you an image, and I told you at the time, I asked you, I said, does this person look like a character from the Batman universe?
The Joker from Batman.
Yeah, the Joker. You know who else I thought about, actually? I thought about Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face well. Because I got to tell you, when I saw these images, I'm thinking, first off, what were you thinking, when you disfigure yourself like this? Because this individual has got these, he's being referred to as the tattoo face guy.
Right. Wade Wilson, tattoo face. Because Wade Wilson sounds like a made up name. It sounds like something out of Marvel Comics, Bruce Banner.
Well, it does. Hey, look, actually, Wade Wilson is Deadpool's name.
Oh, is it?
in the Marvel universe. So yeah, I mean, we've got. I don't know. Wow. What did the fancy academic types say? We've got synergy here.
Oh wow.
And it goes to a level of evil that is inexplicable. Maybe on one level, it's absolutely terrifying when you see this guy, and that's why I started out talking about my memories as a child.
Right.
Because I can't even imagine, first off, sitting across the table from this guy having a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Much less if you're some kind of young child or person that's in an intimate position. Maybe he's tucking you into bed and this guy's leaning over you. Can you imagine?
Worst nightmare. The thing is you have to think, I think, what made you think this was a good idea? Look, Mike Tyson gets a tattoo on his face. He can do that because anybody that looks at him sideways either loses an ear or their face. One of the two is gone because he's Mike Tyson. But for the rest of us, no. When you at a certain point in time, tattoos kind of lose their coolness when you've got weird stuff going on. And Wade Wilson has weird stuff going on. It's so weird, in fact. This is a guy who is accused of committing 2 heinous murders back to back. Depending on who's writing the story, it either happened in a matter of hours or a matter of days. I'm boggled by that. How do reporters get it so wrong?
I don't know. I don't know if they're getting, sometimes I think that given the energy surrounding cases, it's almost as if people get into a feeding frenzy.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever seen, you don't have to see sharks to see a feeding frenzy. I've been fishing out in the Gulf and, catching redfish before, and they get into a feeding frenzy. Everybody's going nuts. You're disoriented. You don't know what's going on. You're not oriented to the location you're in. And because I think, first off, you talk about from a journalist standpoint, these cases have everything I think somebody in the news media is looking for. You've got this oddball guy who is just uber violent.
Oh, yeah.
And seems like he is out of control. And it's the stuff that nightmares truly are. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I just made a comment about it.
Right.
The stuff that nightmares are made of. And
but Joe, if you're going to put tattoos on your face that are menacing, that are, okay, you put a swastika on your face, it tells me a lot of things about you as a person, and none of them are good. So if you're going to be tried, which he has, and that's why we're talking about Wade Wilson, accused of killing 2 women, and he goes to trial, and what is one of the first things his defense wants to do? They want him to be able to cover up these tattoos on his face because the imagery for the jury might be too much. And I'm thinking, you're the one that did this.
Exactly.
How? No, I don't think you get to hide those because they tell us a lot about who you are. And, but that's just me. They did give him permission because our system of justice leans heavily towards the accused, which if you're wrongly accused, you can appreciate that. But if you're a murderer, I don't think you get that. I want to play not nice. I say, no, you killed these people. I know we're going to trial, but you did it. We know you did it.
Yeah. Well, on that point, you were so willing and on the outside,
you paid to get it done,
and not just getting paid to get it, not just paying to get it. You're embracing it, man.
Right.
You're projecting this thing out there. Hey, go all in, dude. Yep, just embrace it. This is who you are.
Right.
This is who you are. And I got to tell you, watching the trial as I have, he's devoid of like any kind of emotion about it. He's very cold, calculating. And one of the fascinating things about this whole thing is just hold on to your hat here for a second. All right. He's claiming that both of these victims, he was being set up by a human trafficking ring, which he states he was a part of. So you're going to go there. So yeah, let's just further, go down the spectrum. So you claim that you're involved in human trafficking, and that's one of the alibis that you're being framed for doing this. I don't know. I think about the scales of justice in my mind, and it doesn't have anything to do with justice. It's like on balance, you're thinking, okay, now do I want to go down this dark path of human trafficking in order to escape? Now he's in Florida. They've kind of got an express lane down there compared to all other states relative to the death penalty. You're talking about 2 homicides, and he's got an ag assault on him as well, on his girlfriend. So your choice is to go with the human trafficking thing, and you're framed. Is that what you're saying?
That's it. It was, do you remember the murder of Molly Tibbetts?
Yes.
Molly Tibbetts, college girl, 20 years old, Brooklyn, Iowa, and she goes out for a run. And while she's out on this run, she is attacked by an illegal immigrant, and he kills her, but he says he blacked out. The whole blackout thing gets me on a lot of these guys who admit. And the reason I'm sharing this with you very quickly is because he made the same claim that he was a victim, that these human traffickers had kidnapped him and forced him to drive his own car to get Molly Tibbetts so they could traffic her. And that he was made to do all this by these traffickers. That was his excuse. So it's not like Wade Wilson, the tattoo face guy, even came up with an original lie to tell. You know, he copied Molly Tibbetts guy. That's because it's pretty much the same thing. I'm the victim. I was kidnapped. I was threatened. I was beaten to do this to somebody else. But getting into the reality here, we've got Wade Wilson, tattoo face, accused of murdering 2 women, and for no reason, by the way, not any reason. Like, there's never a reason to kill somebody, but I'm talking about it wasn't in the commission of a crime. It wasn't where he was defending himself or them. It wasn't in a gunfight at the OK Corral or a car wreck. This was Wade Wilson, tattoo face, meeting a woman in a bar and striking up a conversation that becomes very friendly. And, you know, there are times we make bad decisions in our life, and we all have been victimized, or not victimized. We have all created bad situations for ourselves by making bad decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what Wade Wilson did that night was take advantage of somebody else who needed a companion, looking for help emotionally, just looking for a shoulder to cry on, looking for somebody to talk to, somebody to come. You know, we're a lonely group of people. We are, the United States of America in general, very lonely people. We have way too much stuff. We have way too much entertainment. We have way too many things that our brains are constantly being fed information, entertainment, and sometimes that leaves us vulnerable because we crave companionship with one-on-one person. So much so that we forget, you know, because we could go days, Joe, with never actually seeing anybody face to face, you know, through text, email, phone. We really can. And eventually your body cries out for this. I got to have human contact. And sometimes you reach out for the wrong person. And in this particular case, Wade Wilson was that wrong person.
Yeah, he was. And isn't it interesting, Dave? Almost chameleon-like. We talk about this connection that we want, perhaps, and it makes us vulnerable. But in this particular case, we've got a guy that is camouflaged with these kind of horrific images on his face, but yet what lie just beneath the surface of his skin is far more evil than anything that was displayed externally.
Friday. Kick off the Winter Olympics in style with the opening ceremony from Italy, featuring a special performance by Mariah Carey. Celebrate the greatest athletes from around the globe as they come together to go for gold.
Lindsey Vonn, sensational!
The opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics.
Ilya Malinin.
Redefining this sport.
Friday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Dave, you had mentioned just a moment ago swastikas on the face. Mm-hmm. Just below his right eye.
Talking about Wade Wilson.
Yeah, Wade Wilson actually does have a small swastika beneath the right eye. It's about, I don't know, I'd estimate probably about 1.5 inches.
You see a person like this, like Wade Wilson with the tattoos and some objectionable tattoos. There's no real excuse for a swastika on your face. Okay. How are you going to explain that? I used to be stupid and now I'm not. Because if that's the case, then why don't you do something to make it look different?
Yeah.
And short of that, I'm sorry, I'm not sitting with you. I'm not. Why would I want to?
Right.
Anyway, but somehow he's able to play that, and he's able to get the attention of Christine Melton. He starts with her. She's 35, beautiful woman. She's having a couple of drinks, having an adult beverage or two, and strikes up a conversation with this guy who seems pleasant enough. Maybe that's the thing. The tattoos are off-putting, and then you find out, wait a minute, this guy actually communicates like a regular person. All of a sudden, now it's interesting. Why do you have that? And so they strike up a conversation, have a couple more drinks. One thing leads to another, and somehow he is able, and I believe he's a master manipulator, Wade Wilson, is able to manipulate Christine Melton into allowing him into her home. It could have been, let's just finish the conversation, like to get to know you better, have a cup of coffee. Could have been that simple. Didn't end up that way. But he did meet her in a bar, and they went back to her place. All of that willingly, from what we have been told, that Christine Melton went and invited him back to her place. What happened to her is the beginning of the 24-hour period of crime that is still hurting people to this day.
And it will for years and years to come. We see this a lot in these cases where, I've used the analogy of throwing a rock into this beautiful kind of placid pond. And those waves that go out from that disruption wind up like this. This guy is, in fact, the stuff of nightmares. And here's the thing about it. The methodology, I think, that he is using to lure, because this is a case of luring. I think that this comes down to his, if he, and I've thought about this, could he have used this self-induced disfigurement in order to try to tell some kind of sad story? Because how else could you explain it? How else could you use this to your advantage with somebody that might be vulnerable, to get them in, to have them take a bite of the apple, if you will, to get in their space? And that's an absolutely horrifying, because that's the only way that this could really ever be explained. And so what we know is that when he got back to her apartment, there was an intimate interval. We do know that. And for whatever reason, and we don't know what kind of flip the switch. I don't know that we ever do, Dave, in any of these cases. What kind of flip the switch for this guy to become and react so violently when you begin to think about Christine Melton?
I tend to think sometimes, Joe, that you and I come at it, and most of us, we come at it from a rational standpoint of how we process information, how we react to things, and we try to fit the criminal or the crime into our understanding.
Yes.
But the criminal or the crime in these cases, they're not something that you and I can actually, or most of us could even imagine. It's kind of like, who would go with Charles Manson anywhere? He's a short, stinky, bearded 38-year-old dude out of prison kind of thing. Well, a lot of people did. Same thing here with Tattoo Face Wade Wilson. Somehow he's able to get Christine Melton. They go back to her place, and the next morning when they're up, he, for whatever reason, strangles her. He kills Christine Melton for no reason, apparently. Just that he wanted to kill somebody, which takes us back to the Johnny Cash song, "I Shot a Man in Reno Just to Watch Him Die." I hate to think that that's what Wade Wilson did, that he just said, I want to know what it's like.
Well, I think you have kind of reinforced what the State Attorney General said in this particular case, because he is in the closing arguments in Wade Wilson's case. The State Attorney General said that this case was about, now just hang on, just let this kind of bore down into your soul. It's a case about killing for the sake of killing, Dave. Who does that? Who would want to do that? But yet we have examples of this throughout history of people that go out killing for the sake of killing. You and I had a conversation off air just a few minutes ago where I actually stated to you that there's nothing new under the sun. It goes back forever and ever. But I think that when we see someone that would be willing to go back to a total stranger's house, engage in intimate relations with them, and then, as kind of an afterthought, let me see if I can't extinguish this life, as he wraps his hands around her throat. You're left, and I think that, that's what, with this particular kind of case, this is the type of thing that makes it even more horrific because it's so randomized, Dave. You're thinking you had mentioned about trying to defend oneself against some kind of incoming violence or something like that. That's not what this is about. This is like going out and destroying a beautiful work of art just because you choose to do it, or just burning down someone's home because you're fascinated by fire, or, just going around and making other people's lives miserable. And again, this goes back to the idea that the misery that he has inflicted on both of these women is going to continue for years and years to come, Dave.
Now, when you've mentioned that Wade Wilson, Tattoo Face, and Christine Melton meet at a bar, have a few drinks, they go back to her place where they engage in sexual relations. Wade Wilson, then, after having this very intimate, personal act with Christine Melton, then, from what you've described many times about strangling somebody with your hands, it is the most personal type of murder that there is. How long does somebody have to have their hands around another human being to strangle the life out of them?
It doesn't. When you're and this guy's a big guy, Dave. When you see him, he's robust. He looks like he spends time on the weight bench. Not that necessarily means that you're going to be like Hercules or anything, but when you take his size and you compare it to a woman of Christine's stature, she's not necessarily fragile, but she is certainly not to his level of strength. And also you have to incorporate this kind of primal thing that has arisen in him, because, you've got, I think that all of this violence is sexual violence. That's what I think that it is. It's the driver behind it, because like you had stated, and I previously stated, this is the most intimate of all of these kind of causes of death, the mechanism of death, if you will, this asphyxia by strangulation. As he is wrapping his hands around her neck, he's constricting the airway. And in addition to that, he's constricting the vessels that are running alongside of the airway as well. Now, here's what I'm really kind of wondering. Did he ever adjust his hands and move from the original position? Because if you have that going on, and keep in mind, when you have two individuals that are locked in this kind of violence with one another, and you have this asymmetrical relationship where you've got this dominant individual over her, he has the ability to, and I worked a series of serial killings, actually, Dave, that involved a garrote where a guy would wrap it around ladies' throats as he's sexually assaulting her, and tighten it down, then release, tighten, release, and they will allow them to regain their breath just for a moment. And it increases the horror factor here, because they're allowed to breathe again, and then they're robbed of it again. So I think that in this dominant position, you have the ability to do it. He's enjoying this. He truly is. And I don't want to get too far off into the kind of psycho analysis here and all of the profiling types of stuff that go on with this. But you can see evidence of this many times, the level of violence. There'll also be blunt force trauma many times associated with this, because as you're in a dominant position over them, you can rain down multiple strikes on an individual, their face. So you'll see this level of kind of disfigurement that takes place: broken nose, blackened eyes. You'll get these raccoon eyes in these individuals, because then that gives you an indication that the bony structures of the face have been damaged and fractured as well. That also gives you an idea with the swelling, Dave, and you know this, having these conversations with me, that the person lived. They lived long enough to have an inflammatory reaction to the strikes. And again, that is quite revealing. But at the end, when you're talking about this poor woman, he's attacking her in her own home, where she generally would feel safe. And of course, when he starts this attack and finishes it, he still has one more person that he is going to rain terror down upon.
Friday. Kick off the Winter Olympics in style with the opening ceremony from Italy, featuring a special performance by Mariah Carey. Celebrate the greatest athletes from around the globe as they come together to go for gold.
Lindsey Vonn, sensational!
The opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics.
Ilya Malinin.
Redefining this sport.
Friday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Isn't that enough? In Wade Wilson's case, apparently it wasn't. That's a question I think that most right-thinking people might have a desire to ask. Wasn't that enough? You've snuffed out the life of this precious woman, Christine Melton. She's 35 years old. You've snuffed her life out. You've come into her own little space that she had set up for herself, a place of safety, and you wreak havoc in that environment. But why wasn't that enough? After you had done brutally killing her, you move on to a 43-year-old woman, Diane Ruiz.
But before he does that, Joe, he's trying to figure out what to do. It was not a well thought out plan. He merely meets Christine Melton, goes back to her place, spends intimate time with her, and then strangles her, kills her. He tries to roll her up in some carpet. He knows he's got to do something, but he had waited long enough that rigor mortis had set in, and she was not easy to maneuver. I saw that and I thought, he talks about like this like it's nothing, Joe.
Yeah.
And that was his first thought, was rolling her up in carpet. Again, it wasn't enough. He was still, maybe this is what started him. Maybe this killing was too quiet for him. Maybe this killing merely just let wet his whistle, and he decided it's time for more, because he steals her car and starts going down the road, leaving her dead body back in her place. But he takes her car, he's going down the road, and he sees a mother of two. She's 43 years old. She's just walking to work. That's all she's doing. She was minding her own business, trying to support her family, when she comes in contact with Wade Wilson, Tattoo Face, who has committed a murder in the previous hours. He asks her directions, not because he needs to know anything. He does it because he's going to kill her.
Feeding frenzy.
He sees her on the side walking and decides, I'm going to kill her. That switch, you said feeding frenzy, that switch that got flipped when he killed Christine Melton, he's got to kill more. And he does. He gets her in the car, Joe, and there's some debate as to how he got Diane Ruiz in his car. Did he manipulate her in? Did he offer her a ride? Did he coax her. Hey, I'll give you a ride. Short walk. It's October in Florida. You know, it might have still been warm. Maybe she had a long walk. I don't know. But I know this. Somehow, some way, he got her in the car. Some suggest that once he got her close to the car, he pulled her in,
yeah,
and immediately strangled her, which I think the reason some hope that there was something else going on, that maybe he coerced her into getting in the car, that seems to be more palatable, easier to understand than what something. I tend to be of the belief, based on he had just killed Christine Melton, that once Diane Ruiz got close enough to the car, nobody's riding around him. In a spur of the moment, he grabs her by the throat, pulls her in, and starts strangling her right away. That's just my thought. I have no evidence to go on that. That's just what I think, based on what some police reports say.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It seems as though, Dave, that, and I'd love to hear what you think about this, that when he leaves Christine Melton's place and he's in her vehicle, this attack on Miss Ruiz, it escalates, doesn't it? It seems like it goes to a higher level of violence at this point in time, because of what we know of what happened to her remains and the way her body was treated in the postmortem state.
Well, what we found out about Christine Melton, we know that they met, were cordial, engaged, to the point of developing a quick relationship, and then he strangled her. And my thought was, it was a surprise. She didn't know what was happening, and, it was over fairly quickly. Diane Ruiz gets strangled right off the bat, and he thinks he has killed her, and he's thinking, well, what am I going to do with her body? He is thinking that. It's then that he realizes, Joe, she's not dead. She took a breath. His first thought was not, oh, I got to strangle her again. She's coming back. That was not his first thought. His first thought, Joseph Scott Morgan, was to take Diane Ruiz, to throw her out of the car and drive over her. Not once. Driving over her body, over and over and over again. Remember, he strangled her inside the car. She survives. Overkill time. And we know this information two ways. One, her body, the physical body itself. We do know medical examiner told us what happened there. In terms of the actual injuries, we know his thought process because of a conversation he had with his biological father. Joseph Scott Morgan, have you ever, in your death investigator days, dealt with anything close to what tattoo face Wade Wilson did to Diana Ruiz?
I don't think so. Not with a car. I was actually reflecting on that, and where the individual is taking the vehicle and going backwards and forwards over this poor woman's body, and you think about the reality of this. This is the ultimate in defiling a human, and at a very, very primal level. And what I guess someone that was that was analyzing this from a psychological standpoint might say, well, it wasn't just to cover up evidence, because as I hold, and you and I have talked about this, Dave, if you try to destroy a body with fire, or you're trying to dismember it, which, Lord, we've had enough of those, haven't we, Dave? The level of violence that you're talking about, it goes so far beyond what you did initially. Now you're adding more evidence to it. And so this makes this, there was a level of decomposition as well. We have to keep that in mind when they finally did find her body. And of course, this is October in Florida. Things happen from a decompositional standpoint much more rapidly there than it might in other locales across our country because of the heat. But there was evidence of scavenger activity from animals, this sort of thing. But we know that the trauma that she sustained was so extensive that in that one spot, the police would have a devil of a time working the scene, because you have this kind of layering of evidence that's going on in this environment. You're trying to decide, well, how in the world did she wind up here? What's the significance of this location? What's the surface like that the body is found lying upon? Who might have access to this location? And why is somebody riding around back and forth over the body with a car? Because you're probably going to have tire tracks, not just in the surrounding area, maybe pressing down the grass, the underlying dirt. Dave, you're going to have evidence of tire impressions on the body. Now, I have seen this in motor vehicle accidents in particular, where you'll see evidences of tread marks on the body. So you've got all of that. And think about what we talked about earlier. When he drug her into the car, Dave, when he drug her into the car, he immediately begins to assault her. He chokes her out. So you've got that bit of evidence. And then he violently reacts to her when he realizes that she's not deceased. So again, he strikes again until finally, he's laying her on the ground and rolling back and forth over her body. So when you get a body like this to the morgue that is so mangled, and also you're fighting decomposition here, you're trying to find answers. What's fascinating is that how do you determine the difference between what's going on in her neck, because we believe this is a strangulation, and maybe what trauma she had incurred as a result of the car rolling over her body? Was she deceased at the first time the car went over her? Because if she wasn't, and the tire contacts the body, you're going to have hemorrhage there as well. So do you see how this can become layered? And then it's kind of muddled even further by decompositional activity. Oh my! So it's a very complex puzzle. But you mentioned something, Dave, that I really want our friends to hear. This whole case kind of makes this interesting turn where Wade Wilson actually contacts his father, which is mind blowing to me.
He was not raised by his biological father. They had a minimal relationship. He was raised by step parents or by adoptive parents. And his dad has a background that landed him in prison a few times. And it was his dad during this conversation that Wade Wilson admits to doing this. He doesn't come right out and say, I killed him. He just said, well, they're not going to be going home. They're not going to be coming back around. And during the course of this conversation with his dad, there were certain things that came up that the only reason we know what took place, it's because of the conversation that Wade Wilson did have with his father about what had been done to Diana Ruiz. Otherwise, we would not know what had happened, really. We would have an idea of some things, but he actually tells his dad that he threw her out of the car and ran her over so many times until she looked like spaghetti. Now, Joe, this is not something I would think of to describe a human being. But in this case, where you're looking at him running over the body of this small little, woman, mother of two, running her over so many times, you would see white skin, blood. Yeah, it would look like noodles and sauce. It would look like that if you did this to the person, with the car running them over so many times they become a mangled mess. That's the best description he could come up with to his own father. She looked like spaghetti.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily. Let's see. I don't necessarily. I'm not necessarily surprised by the fact that he is incapable of saying anything other than this. because I think that this guy's mind is in a spot where he can dehumanize somebody to the point, and I think that he's dehumanized himself, I think greatly.
Right.
And that's not a far reach. If you can do it to yourself, you can do it to other people.
Wow.
If you'll disfigure yourself, how much of more of a leap is it for you to disfigure this poor innocent woman that was just minding her own as she walked down the road?
Work.
Yeah, I know. And so,
by the way, 10 o'clock in the morning, Joe,
yeah.
She left the house. Her son talked about this. He was the last person to see her. She was walking to work 10 o'clock in the morning when this happens to her. In the conversation that Wade Wilson had with his father testified. They called him as a witness at trial. And he said he was relating the conversation that he had with Wade Wilson. And he said that during the phone call, Wilson explained he met a girl. This is talking about Christine Melton. He met a girl at a bar, went back to her house. They fell asleep. He wakes up and he said he got on top of her and choked her. He said, I choked that bee.
Yeah.
Just because he woke up before she did, I guess. Then this is what Dad says. He stayed in her house for a little while. He rolled her up in carpeting and was going to put her in the trunk of her car, but he couldn't lift her. Felt like rigor mortis had started to set in. So that's when he decides to steal her car, take off in her car. And that's where he comes into Diana Ruiz, who's walking down the road. And he says, according to the conversation with his dad, he asked her for directions. She gets near, he pulls her in and chokes her while he's driving. How difficult is it to choke somebody, Joe, while you're driving?
Oh, yeah, exactly. And you're taking this woman by surprise. And isn't that interesting? That point in and of itself where you're going to reach over. And do I want to use the word spontaneously here, Dave? I don't know. It kind of escapes. It escapes me. Was it planned? Because can we go back to Christine just for a second?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I was thinking about this. In order for Riger to have set in Christine's body, we're talking hours, Dave.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. I made a note here because I don't know.
Yeah, it would have taken hours. Now, whether or not she was in full Riger at that point in time, I have no idea. But this person apparently had an awareness that there was rigidity present, so it was appreciable. So he's saying that he could not manipulate her body to the point where he could get the body in the trunk. Okay? So with that said, he decides to steal the car. Well, he's in there ruminating over this as he's in this poor woman's space, the space that she's created that's supposed to be, her home, safe home, at home, safe. And I think about this and I'm thinking, well, is he getting so angry over the fact that a natural biological process is taking place and it's inconveniencing him? Yeah, let me steal this car and go out and find somebody else that I can exact my anger upon or exact my revenge upon for the way the world has treated me. And I'm going to end this 42-year-old mother's life with my bare hands. Oh, and by the by, I think what I want to do is completely and totally eradicate her, rip her to shreds, drive back and forth over her body. By the way, with the vehicle he has stolen from a woman that he has just murdered. I can tell you this, though. There's been a day of reckoning as far as Wade Wilson is concerned. Because whether or not he gets the death penalty or not, he's never walking out of the Florida State Penitentiary. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.